those figures actually reveal the shocking extent of reoffending by young criminals. More than 40% of children aged between 10 and 13, listen to those numbers, who face a children's court will be back before a magistrate within 2 years. Something you've got to say is very wrong. And as I say, I think this is an issue right around the country. Brad Batten is the Victorian Opposition's Emergency Services spokesman and joins us tonight from Berwick. Were you shocked at the extent of reoffending, or have you come to realise that this is a massive problem?
Yeah, Steve, it's really interesting, and thank you for having us on, but it's one of those things, I don't know if I was shocked at this time, but what we've seen is this rapid increase in the last 12 months. And I think we've seen enough media reports. I've spoken to you about it, and I know that many other media have been reporting on it. We're seeing this case of reoffending. It's young people who are going in the system and within a 12-month period are reoffending and ending back in front of the courts. That proves something's wrong here in Victoria.
So the age of criminal liability currently is 10. That's going to be bumped up to 12 and then to 14. That seems to be a completely crazy idea, given that if you push it up to 14, Brad, then that group between 10 and 13, 10 and 14 are not going to be considered criminals, whereas we're seeing a massive spike in the number of kids of that age committing criminal activities.
Yeah, I've continued to say this, Steve. We've got a group of between the age of 10 and 14 where we need to be different in the way that we're dealing with them, and I've said that very openly for a long period of time. What the government wants to do is change the age of responsibility without bringing in prevention programs, opportunities for these young kids to actually make a difference in their own lives. They're simply going straight forward and saying, let's just make them not responsible. The outcomes of that will be horrendous for Victoria. We, as a coalition, have continued to say it's not time to raise the age. We need to make sure that we've got young people who aren't offending, that we're giving them the best education options, or options like where I'm standing today, coming out, building up self-confidence in a gym like here in PPTC in Berwick, so people can get out and get that self-confidence. That's what we need to build into our kids these days, or we're going to continue to see those figures where, unfortunately, we've seen recently Dr. Ash Gordon was killed by some of these young kids, but that's going to continue as offenders get worse and worse, and we're seeing that with more violent crime and violent home invasions.
Explain that program, Brad, that you're standing in front of there. I presume they are youngsters who have been convinced to come down to the gym, do a bit of boxing and try and get some of that aggression out of them. Is it working?
Yeah, look, the class we've got here is magnificent. Lockie Burke, who's one of the directors down here, you can see behind me there's a whole heap of people, different age groups, who come down here just so they can get a bit of self-confidence, get out, community involvement. You'll probably hear a few of the punches in the background where they're learning and training how to be best themselves. The programs that they offer down here at PPTC is something I think we should be expanding more across our state, where it's prevention. Now, a lot of the people here today, as I said, mixed age, but they run some really specific age group ones from 6 to 15 to take kids out of the school environment where they can come down here, learn about themselves, find ways to be more resilient when it comes to bullying in our community, and that actually gives them the tools to have the confidence to apply for jobs, to dedicate themselves better at school. They get a bit of that anger out, and it means when they're at school they're calmer and more ready and self-disciplined.
Brad, I couldn't believe when I read at the weekend that the Victorian Department of Justice has come out and said that jail guards in some of our worst prisons, so they're guarding murderers and rapists and violent criminals, should consider the human rights of prisoners before putting handcuffs on. Now, what world are these people living in?
I can tell you where they're living, Steve. They're living behind a desk in Melbourne. We need more and more people who have had lived experience in our prisons to come forward and talk about the challenges that you have whilst you're working in a prison. There's so many people within the prison system, offenders, who are extremely violent, and you cannot take the risk of waiting for something to happen. So handcuffs are there for a reason. What I say to the government and what I say to the bureaucrats in town, those that are inside the prison system, the prison officers that are working on the ground, trust them. They're the ones that know who they're dealing with, how to deal with them the best, and they want to make sure that at the end of the day that their safety comes first. They don't go to work to be a punching bag, they go to work to protect our community. If we don't protect them, we're going to end up with a whole world of chaos in our prison system. Again, a prison system that's in chaos, the Allen Labor government needs to intervene in this and say, let's put prison officers first, and that should be the priority ahead of the human rights of any of the offenders in the system.
Well, we're putting their safety at risk, aren't we?
Oh, 100%. And we've seen it too often, Steve. I've seen people who have come out of the system that have been injured when they've been assaulted as prison officers. We've seen it in the youth justice system where we've actually had a prison officer in there had half their head scalped. These are circumstances and injuries that they will take with them for the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
We can't afford to have that. It's ridiculous.
Nah, it's absolutely ridiculous and crazy. Brad Batten, always good to catch up with you.